Thank you. 8.4, Auckland Transport Update. And just acknowledge Richard Leggett, the AT Board Chair down there. Lovely to have you here, Richard. So Dean, coming up. Enjoyed watching this morning, thank you. Glad of your viewing pleasure, Richard. You need to get a life. Jane Small, the Acting Co-Director of Infrastructure in Place, and Melanie Alexander, who is Acting Director of Network Performance. So welcome along, and hand over to you.
And we will, I was about to say good morning. That was anticipation of being here in the morning. Sorry, that was terrible. But good afternoon, everybody. And we're also expecting Stacey to join us just to talk through public transport. But thank you for the time that we have today. Always enjoy the opportunity to be able to provide an update. There'll be some things that we skip through because actually you've already had a good discussion on them. So what we'll cover today is just some of the highlights over the last month. There's, as usual, an operating network, size and scale of what we've got in Auckland. There is a lot going on. We'll touch on public transport, which Stacey will give you an update. Capital program and asset management is for Jane, and network optimisation, and we'll also talk on the topical issues of the authorised vehicle only lanes matter, which is coming to the attention of many. But we've got some good feedback around where we're at and what's being proposed there. Just across the summer period, because it's the first update since that captures that summer, December, January period. Be true to say there was a lot of rain in January, but despite that, everybody's out busy. You can see that there was some, and you'll have heard of it already, there's a lot of good work achieved over the summer rail closures, and Kiwi Rail is well on track to complete all of its rail network rebuild. That's to get us up to a current state, of course, and you heard them talk this morning about the fact that there will still be a block of line to maintain tracks into the future, and there'll be some blocks of line to finish the work that still needs to occur prior to CRL. Level crossing progress, we've made major progress here. We've had a really good opportunity to do level crossing removals and put in pedestrian overpasses, but Jane will pick up on that in her capital program. I think we've already talked about the new timetable for CRL and the work that's going on there. On flood recovery, there's been a continued program of addressing flood-related impacts from the 2013 floods. We're all but there now, about a year ahead of program. And then we also had quite a number of slips and flood-related damage across the road network as a result of the heavy rains that we had just recently, and the team is well on top of that. Sad to say, but I think there's quite an expertise in there in terms of rapid response and addressing local communities in need, both for temporary works and then also addressing what the longer term fix might be that provides for a more resilient network. Good progress on electric buses with 338 right across the network, and you'll see an update on our electric ferry vessel program, which we'll talk more about when we get to questions, I'm sure. But good progress here, really pleased with what's happening. So on to public transport. I'm going to hand this over to Stacey. I propose, Chair, that we go all the way through the presentation, then up for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Public transport had a good start to the year. So for January, we're actually 7% up on last year, which is amazing because we had 18 weekdays compared to 4 the previous year. And so it was quite a big difference, but it made some good gains. We are behind year to date in terms of where we want to be against our SOI, so we're 3.8% off target. But a good start to the year really does help in terms of building confidence going back into the working year as well as university. The tertiary concession's been really well received. We've had a 25% uplift between January the year prior, so we expect that to grow too in the weeks ahead as university really takes hold. So that's working really well for people. We developed a tourist map with Taitaki in terms of promoting public transport options for visitors, so that's getting shared with all the hotels. It is iterative in terms of it will be updated as things come change or to fruition, or we think there's additions that need to be made to that in order to help people that are visiting Auckland get around by public transport. We've got more ways to pay your way stickers rolled out on buses, just reminding people in terms of the payment mechanisms for public transport. And we've started trialling some public transport information displays within facilities and actual businesses too, to really help the uplift in terms of areas. And they seem to be working really well. We've had good feedback on them. It's a really good option where you have a built-up area and you want to put something like that in the foyer so people know what those available travel options are for them. Fair share continues to grow really well, and the numbers coming out of fair share continue to really impress in terms of the uplift of public transport use with employer investment in that, and those numbers are growing every day. I seem to be getting them through, which is great. Safety update, obviously still very, very topical, and the team are making really, really good progress in terms of our program. With that safety program, so we have 121 buses kitted out with real-time CCTV, so we have got some really good instances where that's been used by operators to go live into the bus environment and help the driver, whether that be deployed resources a lot more quicker than we have been able to previously, so that's working really well. We've actually got 700 bus driver screens in place now, so we are on track to have that completed by the end of the financial year, which is good. Data does demonstrate that there's been less bus driver assaults as that program continues to improve, so it's really proving its worth in the investment into that. Not only that, but then you've got the factors in terms of a bus driver feeling a lot safer, particularly at night with those screens installed. The smart beam that we have trialling around the city's getting really good feedback, and is proving useful to public transport users as well, which is good, both in terms of lighting, but also in terms of being able to charge their phones, and that bus shelter actually, solar lighting upgrade has continued as well. So I can't remember how many we've done. This might be about 300 in terms of upgraded across the network. Staying Safe on Public Transport awareness page has continued to receive a really good uplift amongst our communities in terms of using it, being referred to it, and I think some of the councillors have shared that on their socials for us, and we've had good feedback about that, and that continues to be developed as we build more tools and educational awareness things for commuters. The community of care, and I know this might sound an interesting way to, I guess, concept it, but it fills the gap where traditional safety mechanisms don't work, such as standing guards, etc. So it's developing a package of initiatives. We've been working with academics in terms of active bystanders and developing a toolkit around that, both for the workforce but also for people that use public transport, so there'll be more on that soon, as well as working with other agencies such as community patrols in terms of we're looking at equipping them with hot cards so they can be more like a guardian type activity within the networks that they operate and use public transport and support the safety of that, and as well as continually look about how we can work with individualised communities to make public transport work for them and get better ownership over public transport and the safety with the services. The Share My Journey feature is due out in March, and this is something I've been really looking forward to. So like your Uber journey, where you can share that with friends, family, loved ones to be able to track your journey, it's the same concept in terms of that. So it's another sort of, I guess, layer of support and tools for public transport to use, and I think parents will really like this one as they'll be able to know where their child is in terms of their public transport journey. And the Safety Ambassadors Patrol is starting, I think, late March, might be April. So what we're doing with that is we're working with different providers, whether that be contracted security for bus operators to be able to deploy where they see the problems. So one of the things with our current model, and obviously without the addition of hundreds and hundreds of transport officers, is being able to deploy based on those insights on where drivers are seeing certain things. This provides that agility to the bus network, And so we're starting with 10 and then we're extrapolating that leading up to 30 across the network over the coming months with that as well. We're also, in terms of going to do a trial for night services, which is what we call a flexi stop. And so what we mean by that is, in order to encourage more confidence, particularly with services at night, is pick a couple of bus routes and trial where a customer, when they get on the bus, can say, can you get me closer to this, rather than a designated bus stop, in order to be able to provide that flexibility and safety for customers as they go about their PT journey. Now, with March management, well, look, what we noticed this year, and it seems to be every year, the last couple of years, is it's getting busier earlier. Yep. And the actual March management piece starts a lot earlier than that, starts about November and October, November, based on the previous year's insight, looking at those timetables, looking at where we need to add capacity, overlaying where we've made improvements for the year, and then developing that action plan. So since the start of February, the team have been doing daily stand-ups. Okay, so they look at everything that's come in of the day in terms of that and what needs to adjust over the following days in order to be able to overcome the issues we've seen. Like last year, we've had minimal complaints. We have had some pockets of issues in particular areas, mainly on the North Shore with schools, and that we've been able to overcome by being a bit more flexible in terms of bus sizes, upgrading some bus sizes to make sure that there's adequate capacity, and where absolutely necessary, putting on additional services as well. So it's gone really well. The bubble has definitely passed in terms of the school commencement. We still expect over the next week that we'll see more uplift as well in terms of university getting fully back, and so we're well equipped to be able to manage that. We work very closely as one in terms of the roading network, and they too have joint meetings on the daily to see how it's gone across the network as a whole. It is about being proactive. It is about making sure we're meeting the needs and adjusting the network so that we've got more chance of retaining those customers for the whole year and building up the confidence in the system with that. I'm going to hand over to Jane. Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm going the right way? No, here we go. Capital program. So as Stacey said, it has been a pretty wet summer, but despite that, we've actually delivered a huge amount of infrastructure work over the summer period. Just some highlights there. The Piha Road, which was part of the flood recovery works, was completed in December. Level crossing program, I won't dwell too much on that because the committee will be getting a full update on it next month, but just that Church Street will be closed next week. And that's the final level crossing closure for the CRL day one closures, and the Tamahia and Takanini, there was huge progress made across the pedestrian bridges during the summer block of line. Eastern Busway, we have a particular slide on that, so again I won't dwell on it. And just as part of our walking program, at the request of the community, the Mount Wellington Highway has been widened. And just looking ahead, Red Hills Massey Road is underway. The Glen Innes to Tamaki Drive Stage 4 is progressing as planned, and Totra Road and Apollo Drive bus shelters are also planned to be delivered over the next couple of months. And in the network optimisation space, Dominion Road and Memorial Road intersection improvements is going to commence in February. Just shifting to what has happened in flood recovery, and as Dean said, it is becoming a more, obviously something that we're having to deal with a lot more. There were 85 slips during the 21st of January rain event. 46 of them were on Great Barrier Island and 23 were in our rural northern sector around Maharangi West and that area. All of those are now open. And there is some temporary stabilisation that's occurred there, and there's good progress being made on the reinstatement and delivery of the work to repair those, and that work's been done in conjunction with Auckland Council, and particularly too with in terms of stormwater and looking at longer term impacts of rain events and how that can be accommodated and into those works as we move forward to avoid future slips. In terms of our pothole promise, I'm sure you'll all be familiar with that. And we target 95% to be fixed within 24 hours on our arterial roads, and I'm pleased to say that over the 4-week period, 97% of the 642 requests were fixed, and so that exceeded that target. In terms of the road rehabilitation and resurfacing program, it's pretty significant. I'm sure you're all aware, but 463 kilometres of sealed road is resurfaced and rehabilitated, and that represents about 7% of the sealed road network. And as you can see there, it's roughly the distance between Auckland and Whanganui. So in terms of the progress to date, we've completed roughly half of it, which is about where we should be for this part of the year. You know, we've just passed the halfway mark, so 212 kilometres. And last year we completed 427 kilometres of resurfacing work, and it's the largest resurfacing program that's been delivered in a decade. So the team has worked, there's been a lot of work with contractors and also with the internal AT team to make that happen, and it will continue obviously over the next few years. And just in terms of disruption, nearly all of the work was completed at night to avoid disruption, particularly on arterials, and there was minimal inconvenience both to neighbours adjacent and also to road users. And so the key focus is really to do this during the most settled weather over the summer months. Eastern Busway, we're pretty pleased with this. 5 months worth of work was completed within the 2-week Christmas shutdown to do a major piece of work on the intersection between Te Rakau Drive and the Southeastern Highway. At peak, there were about 105 individuals working on that site. There were 6 crews working together, and that's doing asphalting, the utility shifting, all of the works. And so there were 34 double shifts that were delivered during that period. So it was a massive effort from the team. And we've just sort of outlined there the work that was undertaken. It involved the deconstruction, looking at all of the utilities and shifting those, the drainage, of course, a concrete pavement was laid, and new asphalt, new curbing, and then the line markings and traffic signals, and that was all completed on time, and the team's feeling pretty pleased about that. And just last week, the switch on Te Rakau Drive from where they have been working in the centre line to work on the other side of the road. So as you're heading down away from Seart on the left-hand side of the road, the work is now commenced there for the next phase of Eastern Busway. Just an update on the Great North Road improvements. They caused some discussion, but they have been completed, and that's 1.65 kilometres. No, we'll just go back here so that we can see it. It's between Ponsonby and Crummer Road. It was a corridor piece of work, so there was road resurfacing, there was bus improvements, there was pedestrian and cycleway improvements, and there was also an upgrade of the sort of what I'd call a limited urban realm in terms of seating. In terms of the sort of highlights, it was on time and on budget, and there was a 500k saving there. There were two lanes of traffic were maintained throughout the program, and there was minimal disruption to the community and to businesses. A lot of work went into ensuring that businesses maintained access, and there was a lot of early engagement with the community, and there has been significant feedback, good feedback from the community around the way in which the works were managed. And it was also one of our first projects where we used the risk-based TTM, which is the new model that has been rolled out obviously across the country, and that was contributed to some of the savings as well as the other aspects of it. So that is all from me, and I will pass over to Mel.
Good afternoon, committee. So I have a few slides on network performance to run through, and I understand you would like a quick brief update on Queen Street towards the end. So starting with network safety, I know this committee is very interested in deaths and serious injuries, trying to minimise those on our network. Over the last year, being a calendar year 2025, we've unfortunately had 582 people killed or seriously injured on the network. Whilst this is lower than the previous 12 months, it's still tracking above our SOI target, but has remained steady with our population growth. Just to note is also that during January and February, those numbers, especially for fatalities on the network, has increased, and we've had around 13 in the first part of 2026. We've also, just to answer Councillor Ferry's question from earlier, when we say local roads, we do mean the roads managed by Auckland Transport, not so aside from the state highway network. So most of those deaths and serious injuries do occur on the roads managed by Auckland Transport, and therefore that's why we have a number of programmes to address that and try and improve safety on our network. Road Safety Action Plan was endorsed at the end of last year, and we're currently working with our local board through briefings to develop local board safety action plans targeting those local areas, and they'll be developed in alignment with local boards. We're also continuing to undertake that infrastructure, some of which Jay mentioned earlier, but we have recently delivered on the Grey Street and Maze Road in Onehunga, which experienced 12 crashes over the last 5 years, and so making that a lot safer, and as you can see from the picture there, including some pedestrian improvements as well. Moving on to network optimisation, there's a number of targets within our SOI that we report to, so I'm just going to give a little bit of a highlights on those. So corridors and intersection optimisation, we've looked at corridors, looking at improvements on Rideout Road, Glenfield Road, and intersection improvement on Hugo Johnson and Church Street. They've all been completed. We have 6 projects in progress. Onawa Road is now substantially complete, and that's making some improvements as well. And then there's a lot of work in progress, including a number of projects around Great South Road to align with the CRL enablement. We're also progressing with our special vehicle lane delivery, completing 6.8 kilometres of that target up to the end of the year. That includes the Great North Road corridor that Jane mentioned just now, and we are on target to complete to 10 kilometres. The team have also completed the delivery of smart detection at event sites, and we're just about 90% complete there, networking up CCTV cameras and VMS signs. As an example of that, we wanted to highlight Onawa Road. So this has been a long-standing improvement that the community have requested, and we'd just like to outline this as a collaboration project between the local board, local MP and councillors to actually improve capacity down the road. So it's already a T3 lane, one of our most productive corridors in the morning peak, and this is seeking to put broken yellow lines to have a clear way through the day. We're still obviously working on what the impact is of that. It would take several months for it to come through, but initial feedback from the community has been very positive about the improvements. So moving on to events, obviously summer season is event time in Auckland. I just wanted to highlight the Ed Sheeran event, which took place during the rail block of Lyme. This is a good example of how integrated ticketing and working with our comms and marketing you encouraged around the 70,000 people to increase bus usage, included motivating visitors to attend obviously by public transport, and also enabling extra buses, especially on the second night, to enable people to move around, not just come to Britomart, but also there's connections further out in the city. We also had fan trails to enable people just so while they're waiting in the delays, just to make things smoother. We had excellent feedback from that. Temporary traffic management. We know this is an important topic, as Jane mentioned earlier. The minimising disruption on our arterial network is really important. A lot of those disruptions are now happening at night to minimise the impact on traffic flow. And at the end of last year, we submitted a transition plan to NZTA, which is how we're moving to the Guide for Temporary Traffic Management. That was submitted and accepted by NZTA, and it's a condition of funding for future projects, so we were pleased to make sure that happened. We're also continuing to work with our key contractors and now have Downer and Fulton Hogan using the new guidelines, and we are tracking towards 40% at the moment, but we'll be 100% by the end of the year. We're looking at mechanisms to work more closely with contractors to increase that percentage. In addition, the graph on the right there, the redundant TTM equipment, you may recall that last year we did first sweep of the network, and we picked up several thousand pieces of redundant equipment, be it cones, be it signs, etc. We've started the second sweep, starting in Manukau and working through the rest of the areas. Around March, April time, we'll be completing that. Initial figures show from that's fairly similar to previous years. So we still have a number of equipment out there, and we're working with the companies that have equipment out there, especially where it's still having an existing issue with safety, to address that as quickly as possible. And parking. So what this covers is quite a lot of parking, but some of you have seen the campaign around beach parking and safety. So that advertising was well received and discouraged parking on beaches, reinforcing the joint AT Auckland Council beach safety efforts, and it showed good compliance with no significant issues. We're also finalising our internal testings around mobility e-permits, and we're looking to launch that fairly shortly. And we got strong results in our responsive parking management to targeted improvements across the network, so a significant number already completed with 123, and we continue to look at that as we go through. And last meeting, we did provide you an update on comprehensive parking management plans, and we're looking to implement them further in the city centre. So that completes the presentation, but I just wanted to, I've been asked just to talk a little bit about Queen Street and Wellesley Street and the AVO proposals. So I know a number of the councillors around this table have received a number of emails over the last week or so. I just wanted to reassure councillors that Auckland Transport is also receiving those. We're also receiving a number of emails supporting the proposal for the trial, and we're collating all of that information, responding to individuals that have come through to us. Really just to highlight the integration with CRL, Stacey mentioned earlier, the Wellesley Street bus interchange programme. Stage 1 opens in mid to late April, and the idea of the stage 1 is actually to align that with the use of the bus lanes with the AVO and Queen Street changes. So we're proposing a trial and to look at 7 till 7. This is partly because at the end of last year, end of November, you recall that we moved quite a lot of the bus services onto Albert Street. 447 buses are moved across, which enabled us to look at the operation of the Queen Street AVO as well. And we had early engagement with a number of stakeholders, including the local board, City Centre Advisory Panel, Heart of the City, Police and Council. And we're seeking a pragmatic response, really, to balance the needs of the economic requirements of the city for businesses, but also to enable travellers through the area, including use of public transport. And we do recognise that this is going to be a key part of our network, aligning with CRL and the new station. So we want to try a really adaptive approach. So we're using the Reshaping Streets street layouts rule, which enables us to be really pragmatic. We've got a set of monitoring conditions which we're working through at the moment and sharing with the local board in the coming weeks. And that really helps us to focus. So if we need to change something, we can do it at speed. And we just, together with that, it's not just the AVO hours, there's a whole package of midtown changes that have been shared, including changes to parking and loading and servicing for that area to support the economy and the arts sector there as well. I hope that provides a little bit more insight. Thank you.
Thank you. All done?
We are all done and happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
I bet you are. Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Chair, and good update. Thank you. I hope we still get these kinds of updates when everything moves through the transition period. Look, I've got a few questions. First, on the screens for bus drivers. I mean, I'm a huge believer of the screens, and I think they're a great initiative. But have we got in? And you sort of glanced over it, Stacey. Have you got any figures on the violent incidents towards drivers and how the screens have made a tangible difference, or do we just know this is the ambulance at the top of the cliff rather than the bottom? I'm just keen on the
Yeah, absolutely.
ROI.
If we're to look at the 2025 calendar year in comparison to 2024, there was 59 driver assaults in 24 compared to 53 in 2025. And obviously that continually improves. So the majority of those happened in the first part of the year. We've had very little incidents where a bus driver screen is actually installed where there's an event taking place.
24, 29, no, did you say 2024 was
In 24 there was 59, in 25 there was 53.
You mentioned the Ed Sheeran concert. I just want to congratulate you on the integration. I was an attendee at the concert and I came out and there was a bus right there and I literally didn't have to wait. I got straight on it. But my question to you is, as soon as everyone was sitting down, the bus moved. Is there a policy that you couldn't have put people standing up on the buses as well to get rid of more people? Or did you, because they moved away as soon as people were seated, but they wouldn't take anybody standing up? Is there a policy, or did it just, because you could have got almost double the amount of people out?
They are supposed to.
Yeah. And so you're saying that they only allowed seated capacity only. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Didn't know.
If you could look at that for another time, that would be fantastic. The Community of Care Safety Initiatives, very keen on that. Can you tell me a little bit about which communities they'll be targeted?
All our communities, but we're particularly looking at areas where we know that we have, let's say, either low uplift and the reasons why, but also there's a lot of communities that are more willing to work with us on these particular things, right, and not wait for the ambulance at the end of the cliff. So the team are definitely approaching that, but from a social perspective, actually working with different groups, so in terms of with Pacifica Wardens, with the Māori Wardens, with particular ethnic groups in particular areas, with the social cohesion groups. In terms of that, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. The idea is to develop exactly that, like a community type focus initiatives in areas to meet people where they're at, and with local people involved, because we know that's where we make the biggest difference, is when we actually get the local people involved with these. If we see emerging issues, it's the biggest lever we have.
Thanks. My next question is around the Edinburgh tattoo, and I brought it up with the CRL update, but the feedback from people who tried to use public transport to go home was that the trains had stopped after the event and people couldn't get a train. The flexibility around buses and trains, can you just explain a little bit how you work with stadiums such as Go Media, Eden Park, etc., when there's a major concert on and potentially they're not event, it's not event public transport like Ed Sheeran, it's more, how does it work? Because it didn't seem to work as well as it could have for the Edinburgh tattoo. I'm just kind of understand what could we do to improve it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, with that particular event, because of course I did get your messages on Friday and we saw what was happening there, and it is really between the event organiser and the events team in terms of working out what capacity they want based on crowd sizes, and estimated completion times in terms of events. So when something happens on a Thursday, as an example, there is no late night scheduled services, so you're running shuttles. So you're reliant in terms of the efficiency in turning those shuttles around back and forth. Where in this instance, there was a longer egress period, and in terms of that, and took longer for boardings and alightings, and so you had an extended wait time. So that's a learning, for the teams in terms of that. In fairness to the operator, they're only as good as the information they get, and so we've got to enable them with that good information and making sure we really understand some of those things that are coming our way so that they can appropriately respond. We also had a lot of good feedback as well, but yes, noted that there were improvements that could be made, and I think that's really got to do with the front end in terms of designating what is being prescribed for this service, because then we obviously deliver to that prescription, so making sure it's robust up front is the biggest lever.
I just think with more events coming to the city, we've got to talk to each other better, And my last one, look, it's not in your presentation, but it is cruise time, and with cruise time comes ferry delays. I just, for the public record, could you please, because a number of people, angry people from Waiheke, Councillor Lee, have contacted me about the delays to the ferries as a result of cruise. So could you please outline the steps that Auckland Transport has taken to minimise the conflicts and remind us again what the ultimate resolution is around trying to fit the ferries and the big cruise liners into Auckland all at the same time?
Absolutely, thanks, Councillor. So, look, we've continued to advocate for improved, what I call windows, to make sure it doesn't interact with public transport and therefore delay a customer's journeys or cancel, as the case may be. And it has been a lot better than in previous years. And in terms of that, we have requested further extensions of that window. Now, for a number of issues, they can't do that. So the main reason is in terms of the shift times for the Ministry of Primary Industries personnel, because they start time of 6:30, so they have to do their duties before that. Speed restrictions in the Hauraki Gulf due to whales, and timetable impact for onwards journeys to the Bay of Islands and Tauranga. So there's a whole bunch of things that are being juggled in order to bring that in. Sometimes there are delays. The idea is to minimise as most impact as we can and be able to forecast where they're going to be able to hit. It's been the very odd occasion this season that it's actually impacted, or there's been delays that have not necessarily been communicated well in advance in terms of that. The ultimate end goal is obviously to have a purpose-built facility, but acknowledge there still needs to be improvements because Princess Wharf will still be used for smaller vessels.
So do you, forgive me, I don't catch the ferry, so do you put on the AT app warning a cruise ship's coming in, your ferry trip might be delayed?
We do. The night before it's all updated. So what we introduced last year was we have a train line status in the app. So we introduced the same for ferries, so people can check the night before in terms of if there is any impacts to their ferry services. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Victoria?
Thank you. Mine's a PT question, but is there any way to extract hop card data to help with patronage numbers for school runs? So, for instance, I've just recently received a complaint from Glamorgan Drive, apparently with kids being left behind. And Rangitoto College, there's 4,000 students there. Long Bay College, there's 2,000 students there. And I think North Cross is like 1,500. So is there a way that we can extract that data to also help with school runs, especially with the bus
absolutely.
situation?
Thanks, Councillor. Look, we look at the data every day. So every day they're reviewing in terms of what that capacity information shows in terms of tag-ons and adjust it as necessary. The biggest issue, and actually a good message for all councillors to take back to your constituents, is make sure you tag on and off, because otherwise we're blind. Without that information, we can't meaningfully assess what the capacity is and where we need to make changes. So that's the fundamental thing. But that's looked at on daily. And so as long as we get the good data, then we can make adjustments to it.
Two more. Just in regards to the wardens at the Hibiscus Coast bus station, I was just curious, how is that going, and have we had any more incidences up there?
No, I don't believe so in terms of that. It's a constant adjustment though, in terms of what we see across the network. And so little pockets of things will pop up. It's trying to get on top of them and make sure that we're sharing that information. We're working really closely with police. They're very responsive to us. So if we are seeing things, emerge or something's reported by the public or reported by public transport operators, then that issue is dealt with really quickly. So it is about having presence, though. It does make a meaningful difference.
Massively, thank you. My last question is, I wrote a letter maybe a month ago to AT in regards to Falls Road. Apologies, Greg Sayers, I know that's in your neck of the woods. I was just wondering if there was any update in regards to Falls Road and Warkworth. I know that the local board had some sort of update, but is there anything?
Everybody's looking at me, so I think I'm going to be giving the answer. I will follow that up. Sorry, if you haven't got the reply, then you should have got it by now. So can I take that away and come back to you?
Absolutely, thank you so much.
Thank you. Sarah.
Thank you. I'm not sure how long you've all been in the room, but this morning we had some students from AUSA come and speak to us about transport, and one of the things they raised was that there's a number of buses that feed into campus that are not wheelchair accessible, and that's presenting a challenge for some of the wheelchair using students there. This is also, as you'll be aware, I'm sure, been more of an issue around the city with the rail replacement buses, obviously often quite older buses. Are there, well, two questions. One, has AUSA been in contact with you about that problem? And the second question is, are there plans to increase accessibility across the fleet?
Thanks for your question. Two things, I guess, in response to that. No, they have not approached us about that, as far as I'm aware, and I know the team have been talking to them because they engaged with them when we extended the tertiary concession. Yeah. Highly unlikely you will find a bus that's not wheelchair enabled on the AT network. It'll only be in the instances where we've got a rail replacement and we're really scrapping to try and find buses to do it. That would be the only time, because all our standard AT fleet is what we call requirements for urban bus compliance. So that's like a national standard that stipulates some of those measurements in terms of wheelchair accessibility. If there are instances like that, we're really keen to hear about them, though, to make sure that we know where they are. Yeah.
Just a follow-up, I think they were referring to it. I don't think they were referring to, in case we're at cross purposes, the ability for a wheelchair to mount the bus. It was around the securing of the chairs within the bus. I'm not sure if that's, I'm new to bus building, but that could be two slightly separate issues. I'm not sure.
Okay, I will follow up on that. It should be standard. Yeah.
Thank you. John W.
Just following on about the event management and noticing the different kind of offerings that, depending on, I guess, on what the venues, from standard fares to free on normal public routes to everything laid on, and you have the buses. And generally when I go, it's really quite impressive. On Saturday, and I'm just wondering with the trains, because when when the buses aren't put on from the North Shore, that means everyone's on the trains. And on Saturday they were moving some serious quantities of human beings. I mean, some serious numbers. It was like that Japanese photo of them squeezing people on. But at Kingsland Station, I get to my question was, it was really congested there, and they were taking people up a rather convoluted, here we go around the mulberry bush, and I was wondering if that was part of a strategy to try and control the flow of human beings, or was it just something that was happening on the night? Because and there was with that tattoo, there were a lot of older people too, just in the audience, and there were a few people falling over and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering, is there an issue at Kingsland when when there is not those event buses coming from the North Shore and elsewhere other than the private ones, and where you have, and everyone arrives there generally looking for that train, once the gig finishes, and you just have these, you know, it was sort of akin to some of the scenes in the football crowds over in Britain. It's just a little bit on the edge.
Noted, Councillor. Look, I'll take that away and review what happened. It's a shame that North Shore buses weren't specified for that event. I think that would have taken the sting out of it in terms of that, and I have had that feedback from others that attended the event as well. So, I mean, Kingsland Station isn't perfect in terms of the way it's situated for sure. But yeah, that crowd management aspect leading up to it sounds like it needed some improvement. Yeah.
Greg, sorry. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just want to thank Councillor Short for her question. Just following on from that, at that Falls Road, there was a situation where we had these like flashing lights, you know, saying don't proceed type of thing. And I think we've got a number of those across the region, Dean. And my question is just, are we going to assess how effective those are across the region? Because would it be better to have barriers coming down that actually stop people? I think we've got those flashing signals as trials, for want of a better word, as testing how well they go. So are we going to reassess their effectiveness?
Melanie might know, or Jane might know some more, but I read the report relating to the death of the individual. Okay, so there's a few things there about Falls Road. First of all, it's a ford. Okay. And when there's floodwaters, it's designed to go over it. Secondly, it did have the warning, and the warning sign was operating. So we know that. So the person made a judgment call to cross anyway, even if the warning sign was on. And they miscalculated. Given the nature, the topography, the depth, the speed of the water, it was a poor decision as it turned out. So, look, short of putting barrier arms on these, maybe that would be a solution, but I think we need people to take into account the warnings that we do provide. And you know, otherwise you're up for bridging some of these locations or other solutions, and that's not necessarily either going to be effective or cost effective. But yeah, all the systems were operating on that particular day for that particular event, and sadly, a person still lost their life. Yep.
Okay, Julie.
Kia ora, thank you. I've just got a couple of questions. Surprise. The stuff on the tattoo, and I'm sorry if I missed this while I was out of the room. I think one of the issues there was the unique nature of the crowd. There were a lot of older people and people with disabilities. Not necessarily, those two things aren't necessarily the same. And I suspect a lot of people who weren't familiar with necessarily accessing those transport systems to get to an event of that type, a large-scale event. And so I think it would be interesting and useful to review that. It's a very different event from the likes of Ed Sheeran and things like that. So what work will be done? I mean, it's all very well for us to say, well, you know, some of this is about the promoter or whatever, but actually we hold the expertise and we're going to be the ones giving them advice on this is the kind of transport plan you need. So what are we going to do around reviewing the specific event, because this is a location, and you know, Councillor Watson raised some of the constraints around Kingsland Station. Those aren't going to change in a hurry. This is a location that is likely to have more events with a wider variety of different audiences in the future. So what are we doing to learn from that?
Absolutely. So what we will do is work with our special events team and ATOC to go through all the feedback of this event and see what needs to be changed, and also in terms of what was agreed, you know, with the event organiser, and actually, you know, sort of forecasting what that demographics may have looked like. So therefore, because I think from the mobility perspective, that seemed to have been one of the key things, and actually how could have we done better with that in terms of supporting people to move about and to get the services that they need. And so we'll take that back and work with the ATOC team.
Can I just add, look, for successful delivery of these public transport services at an event, we do require quality information from the event organiser, and it's important to make that point, because as part of their service, they're also thinking about how do people move from home or wherever to the event and back safely. And so my appeal on this one is we will do everything we can because we're a partner in it, but we need the event organisers to lean in and own their part of the equation. Now, a youth concert might be different to a tattoo, I get that, and there are learnings out of it, but we just need to think about our Go Medias, our Eden Parks and these other locations, and the ask is if you can help us with the event organisers to step up to the plate with us to deliver the service that people of Auckland or visitors expect. And those same event organisers make choices around the level of service they want from us from a public transport perspective. So if an event occurs and they choose no integrated ticketing service, then only the scheduled services operate. And they make that choice based on things that are unique to them. And if the demand is greater or the nature of the people attending is different, then my encouragement is they should join us in making the decision about what the extra over services are and how they are provided, because it is a complex, very, very important thing. So I accept we have a lot to continue to learn to get this right, but we can only achieve the outcome you're after in partnership.
Yeah, and look, I completely agree with the point you're making. What I'm trying to say here is I think there needs to be a two-way conversation, and I suspect that's what you're after too.
There's a lot of two-way conversations, but ultimately the event organiser decides whether they want the integrated ticketing solution or not, whether they want the additional service or not.
Yeah.
And then we're left in this position of whether we accept or not. That is a choice they've made for their event.
And I understand that. My recollection is that our feedback that we put in around Eden Park's bid for extra events was that we asked for it to be a condition, was that events over a certain size had to have integrated ticketing. So I think there's recognition of that.
We fully support it. We want the service to be delivered.
I think the other thing is that the experience from and I've had variable feedback around tattoo in particular. I've had people who had a great experience, loved it. Loved the tattoo, but also loved the transport experience. And I've had other people who it fell over in some way for them. Most commonly, that has actually been the last leg of getting from our services to their seat in Eden Park. And so, but they don't necessarily differentiate. They see all of that as their transport journey. And I think that's part of the harm to our reputation is actually out of our control because it is that last leg. So our work on setting that up for success too, and perhaps that's more in the space of giving advice to those people, they may or may not accept it, of, we recommend, look, this happened last time, guys. You had 8 golf carts, and you only put 2 at this one and you needed 4 at this one, remember? That's what I'm talking about as a two-way conversation. Is that something that you guys are open to? I suspect the answer is yes. Yes, of course. Great.
Constantly doing it, so excellent. Welcome your continued encouragement.
Excellent, happy to deliver that. I also had a question on a different topic around footpath renewals. So I'm having a bit of a different experience in the footpath renewal space than I have, where I used to see reasonably quick action, and I used to, log stuff, and it might not happen next month, it might take a little while, but it would happen, and all of the bits that in a street that were logged would happen. And suddenly, in the last sort of financial year or so, I've seen a change in response where I have to go back multiple times. Sometimes they'll do 2 bits, but not the bits in between that are actually worse and stuff like that. Is this to do with the fact that the subsidies have changed and we have less budget? Are we still doing as much? Because we put 500 million in terms of the local share, not just into footpath renewals, but to meet that cut in subsidies. So how is that tracking, please?
Joan and I were just conferring. So look, there might be some instances where clearly it could have been coordinated. So I don't think any one answer is going to suit. So that's the first point. There might have been some coordination issues. Second one is when through the government, through the GPS and NZTA, they did reduce the funding for footpaths. So it was a different category.
Yep.
And I don't quite know, council would have definitely matched. I don't know, I can't recall, I'd have to go back and check whether you decided to make up the difference or not. So there is a funding reduction, and that will have affected the number of, or the length of footpaths that could be maintained or upgraded. So there is a few things in there, but I think it's best if I go back and just double check what's occurring there, because the nature of it is probably several, and I don't want to give the wrong steer, but those are two thoughts on it.
Cool, thank you. Last question, which is the temporary traffic management plan work, which is fantastic, and good to see that starting to make a difference on the ground. Can we please have that wrapped up in a nice briefing as part of the elected member briefings that happen on Mondays? Because I think it would be great to get that in front of local board members as well, and to be able to have a bit more of an in-depth discussion about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, no further questions. So, well done. Thank you very much. You can step back.
Thank you.
Someone like to move that we receive this report? Thanks, Richard. Second. Thanks, Victoria. Are there any comments? Perfect. Put it. Those in favour say aye. Aye. And against, carried. Okay, next one up is Craig and Healthy Waters Flood and Resilience Program update. Another daily train user, I know.